All right. Hi, guys. I'm here with Dr. Adam Bletsoe, and we're doing our second day. And today we're talking mindfulness. So I'm going to be picking Adam's brain about mindfulness. This is his area of expertise. And I actually met Adam through his mindfulness meditation program, which I'm super grateful for. So Adam, why don't you kick things off by telling us a little bit about what mindfulness is?
Right on. I'm so glad to be here. Day two, creating calm in the chaos. And mindfulness was one of the things that got me through the last year in particular, because when the wind blows harder, you need to sort of root down a little deeper and come back to yourself. So in mindfulness, the general definition of mindfulness is paying attention, really just paying attention to the present moment by design, so on purpose, without bringing anything else into it. So without judging it or without pushing it away or without pulling it too close. So just this concept of being able to witness what's going on in the moment without getting too caught up in it, with our ability to sort of practice letting things go and just seeing it as it is. So one of the ways to practice mindfulness in particular, so there's actually two things going on, right? There's mindfulness, which is more like the way, and the how is actually meditation. So sometimes those things can, people think they might be different. Really, it's just the practice mechanism for mindfulness. Just that idea of practicing in the microcosm inside of yourself, the thing that you will use in the macrocosm, but out in the world.
Cool.
So that's what meditate or mindfulness is.
Amazing. All right. And obviously, yeah, this is something that you practice on the regular. And why do you do it? Like, why do you encourage clients to do it? What do you feel are the benefits that we gain from this mindfulness? I know some of it is
Right.
quite intuitive, just listening to your definition of what it is. Of course, it's intuitive why, but if you could just speak
Yeah.
to us a little bit more in depth about why mindfulness meditation.
Sure. You know what? And I frame it in the context of this year in a way, is that one of the faculties that's been built into the brain, the human brain, over the 100,000 years of evolution is this thing that we call the negative bias. And the negative bias basically says that, 10,000 years ago, when we weren't living in the societies like we are today, we were living in a more dangerous environment. And it behooved us, it was wise for our brain to actually lean towards the negative, because when we lean towards the negative, we're more apt to notice threats. We're more apt to notice areas of danger. We're more apt to notice those opportunities that can kill us. And so our brain wasn't as well tuned to notice the good, kind of reflecting back on the mindset talk we did the other day. So the negative bias tends to run rampant in our brain, particularly when the environment reflects it. So when there is chaos in our environment, we tend to kind of take that on, because awareness and mindfulness is a lot like a telescope. It's like when we look at something, it gets reflected into our brain. And so if it's chaotic on the outside, then we're going to tend to feel chaotic on the inside. On the other hand, when we practice mindfulness, and we often use a focus, and that focus tends to be something in the present moment. So maybe a word, often though it's the breath. And the breath tends to be static. It tends to be present all the time. And it tends to be rather inert. It doesn't tend to be, it's not like focusing on the news. It's something kind of quiet and still. And so when we focus on that present moment, we activate that other side of our brain, that part of our brain that does notice the good things, the part of our brain that notices the peace and the calm that comes from being in the moment. And from that peace and calm, the opportunities abound for noticing our regular default patterns, which our brain was actually built for joy. It was built for pleasure. It was built for connection. It was built for creativity and purpose. It was built for those things. But when the chaotic environment sort of kicks, we find ourselves being drawn into that. So the benefit of mindfulness and meditation during this time in particular is to help us reset, is to help us come back to that side of our brain, that side of our physiology, where we can see the good stuff, where we can feel that calm and peace, and thereby relax and feel more comfortable.
Excellent. Yeah, that really resonates deeply, and I feel like I love that definition and the you talking about the negative bias, because I really do feel like it kind of comes back to this inherent physiology that can sometimes be working against us unless we just turn on that switch and say, oh, wait a minute. And when we think about negative bias, especially with, like we said, that chaos that we're all living through in this past year. And I can't think of anything that's more negative, negative bias than, let's say, the news, right?
Right.
We're marinating anyway. I'm not going to bash being aware of what's happening in the world.
Right.
But we're marinating in that, right? And so we've got physiology, and then we've got a lot of these external variables right now, right here and right now. So anyway, thanks for highlighting that, because I think it really does speak to why it is incredibly important for us. And and Adam, just in terms of, I'm sure you come up against this a lot as well when you're talking to clients about this. Why not? What are some of the obstacles that people face when they start dabbling, or what would be a reason, people that I've heard a lot personally, I've tried it and it didn't work for me. Like, what do you say about why do we resist it? What's going on there?
Yeah, I get it. It's often when the more we marinate in that chaotic environment, the more anxious our nervous system becomes, and the more apt we are for our attention to flit around to all sorts of different things, rightfully so, because our brain is in that negative bias state and we're looking for the next threat. My point is, when we try to settle in to a budding mindfulness practice, maybe without guidance, or maybe without really knowing about the brain, we can find our attention just jumping all over the place, and it can feel rather uncomfortable and maybe even ineffective. It's not, because that moment you chose to settle was a moment you made a choice for yourself. So maybe your expertise hasn't been well honed yet, but certainly that moment was very valuable in yourself. But we can see that if that negative bias is kicking in that moment, it's really hard for the brain to feel settled. And then we're going to say to ourselves, geez, I didn't get that buzz that I wanted. I didn't get that relaxed feeling. It must not have worked for me. And then one of the things I'll share with clients in those moments is that meditation isn't about the result in that meditation. It's a side effect if we exit a meditation with relaxation or with calm or with peace. Meditation's actually for your life. Practicing the ability to pay attention, to concentrate, to focus on the things we want to focus on the things that are really important to us, what we value, what's our purpose, what's our vision. That's where the benefit of meditation shows up. So often at the beginning, if one can sort of have a little bit of faith, and I say to them, hey, let's measure the benefit of your budding practice through the benefit to your life, not the benefit in the moment of that meditation. That can be a way to get over that bump.
Mm-hmm.
That can be a way to get over that bump.
Yeah. Another
Another way might be choosing your focus. So meaning, if, for example, when we're feeling anxious, we focus on the breath itself can be quite thin or quite high in our chest, or we can really relate to that breath as part of our anxiety. So maybe we instead will focus on something else. We might focus on a visualization, or we might focus on a body meditation. So in other words, we might be able to direct our attention somewhere else, so we're not staring right down into that fear and anxiety. We can use our focus to look somewhere slightly different.
Okay. Excellent. Yeah. I actually also resonate with that, because I know that I'm getting much better at doing guided meditations. Sort of listening to somebody. I can listen to somebody talking at me and telling me what to think about and where my mind should be. But it is much harder for me to be still and just connect sometimes with the breath or with the thought, so I know based on how revved up I am, how busy of a day I've had, I probably am more likely to opt for someone else's voice in my ear than trying to find that stillness.
That's such a great point, though. And I think we should give ourselves permission. It's not uncommon for about 80% of those that I practice with to choose guided meditation, because it helps them get the outcome and it helps them fall into that space more easily. And I think that's a fair choice and a fair statement you're making. It's a good one.
Excellent. Sorry if you're hearing my dog eating in the background. She just got home and she's mowing down over there. I hope it's not too loud.
Welcome back, puppy.
Yeah. And so in terms of how should, like, do you have any take homes in terms of if we want to be more mindful, if we want to develop a mindfulness practice, how should we go about this? What are your tips and tricks for us?
All right. Okay. I love it. So we're going to be going through some of them as we go through our 6 part mini series, right? So one of them is community,
Mhm.
connecting in with a community of individuals. Because when we do things together, our mind is actually wired for connection and we thrive in connection. So if we have the opportunity to go through this journey with somebody, that can be really helpful. Hence the reason why you'll see community apps like Calm or Insight Timer or Mindset. They really work well for people because they're connected to others. Another one would be place and time. So choosing your time that works well for you, where you can commit to it, and it doesn't fall down the list, you know. So if we say we're going to do it at the end of the day, but at the end of the day is when the kids need us the most, or when we're too tired to do it, it's an inevitable thing that it will get bumped. But maybe first thing in the morning might work, and then the location might be important too. Where do we do it? We might find a little special spot that works for us, a little quiet nook or next to the windowsill or on our favorite sofa or something like that. And the last one would just be point how long. And often I think the perception is that we must meditate for maybe many, many minutes or, an hour to be doing it effectively. But sustainable and doable is really the first approach. Starting with a minute,
Mhm.
starting with watching 10 breaths. Maybe if and when you're interested, the body's really interesting, is that when we like something, we go towards it. So if we dip our toe in that lake and we do 1 minute watching 10 breaths, there will be a day where our body may say to us, hey, you know what? Go for 2. I'm willing to try 5 minutes today, that kind of thing. So we let it grow naturally as the capacity grows, and we'll start to feel happy and full. All that dopamine will be released saying, hey, I'm doing something good that's working. I like this. And we'll pursue it a little bit more.
Yes. Awesome. Yeah. So it's so true, right? Just that our ability to connect with things and hold ourselves accountable. Again, it comes back to
Right.
where if we prioritize these things, we have time for them. If we just sort of expect that it will fit in somewhere somehow, the benefits are going to be a little foggy, right? But
Right.
if we can just set ourselves up to say, you know what, the mind is busy a lot. Let's make sure that we don't forget how to quiet that mind down, because you don't want that buzz nonstop all day, every day, because it
Right.
takes away from your peace, your joy, your ability to focus, all kinds of things, right? So I do love that you set it up as sort of a skill that we just grow over time, just like our
Right.
set, just like our
Yeah.
piano playing, just like anything. So a skill that we can grow. So awesome. Well, thank you so much for that. Is there anything else that you want to touch on before we close off this session, or do you feel like you've kind of summed it up in terms of mindfulness?
You know what? I think I'll just remind our viewers that on April 2nd, when we do our sum up last talk, we're going to have a meet and greet. We're going to do a mindfulness meditation together. So we'll have an opportunity to do that together on our last session.
Yes, awesome. I forgot about that. Thanks for mentioning that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's going to be a really nice way for us to ground ourselves together and connect in the moment. So amazing. Well, thank you so much for that, Dr. Bletsoe, and I'll see you soon, I guess.
Right on. See you in a couple days.